And just like that, day one of free agency, the New York Jets have a brand new quarterback. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Sure, you've heard it by now. Story broke, hour and a bit ago. The Jets in need of a quarterback, back in quarterback purgatory with the release of Aaron Rodgers. Don't have a reliable signal caller under center. I get that you've got Tyrod, but as I've said many times over, the injuries are many with him. I don't see that Tyrod Taylor will be having fewer injuries as he gets older. So the Jets had to go out and get somebody. We know they wanted somebody who can run, and there aren't many guys who can run like Justin Fields. So they go out, they outbid the Pittsburgh Steelers by a lot. Reportedly, I should say. A Pittsburgh area reporter tweeted out earlier that the Jets offered Fields, they gave Fields $30 million guaranteed, worth up to $40 million, whereas the Steelers were willing to go 20 and 30. So the Jets outbid the Steelers by $10 million. Not a small amount of money when you're talking about a 2-year deal, and when you're talking about a quarterback who's got a lot of questions. But at least by giving him that 2-year deal, you get an extended look at him because, again, he's a young guy. He has struggled, but as I've said, as many others have said, and maybe there'll be a lesson learned here. Funny enough, they're both Jets quarterbacks, but maybe the Geno Smith and Sam Darnold situation will teach some people that you don't be so quick to throw these quarterbacks away. It doesn't happen overnight. Everybody's different. Some guys get it year one, good for them. Some guys need some time. What was Geno Smith? Year 7, 8 when the light went on for him? And then you got Darnold, year 5, 6 for him? In fact, Geno may have just been away from the Jets for that long. I can't even remember. And look, I'm not saying draft a guy and plan on him being good in 7 years. That would be preposterous. But draft a guy and develop him the right way. And if the Jets are going to do that, if the Jets' plan is to work with Justin Fields and kind of play to his strengths and let him do what he does well, rather than do the square peg round hole thing, which so many teams seem to do. Jets teams have done it in the past. Let this kid run. I think maybe that changes. Well, I shouldn't say changes your plans. It makes me look at Armand Membu, the Mizzou tackle, who we've talked about, that monster combine. Maybe he's your guy now at 7. And again, I've said all along, give me T-Mac. I did say Graham at one point, but there's so many tackles. I'm not taking a tackle that early. So T-Mac, he's the guy that I would prefer. But if you're going to just say, you know what, we've got Justin Fields, who ran for over 1,000 yards a couple years ago. We've got Breece Hall, who would have run for 1,000 yards a couple years ago if the Jets coaching staff knew how to count. You've got Braylon Allen, who showed promise as a rookie. You've got Isaiah Davis, who showed promise as a rookie. You've got Olu Fashanu, hopefully back at full strength. You've got John Simpson, who had a great year. You've got Joe Tippmann, who at worst is slightly above average and has the potential to be much better than that. You've got AVT coming back. You add Membu to that, and you say, look, we got these 4 runners. We're just going to ground and pound all day long and see if you can slow us down. Look, it's not the exciting brand of football that the NFL wants. They want teams throwing it and airing it out. I'm not even saying it's going to work. But I could see this team going down that route and saying, look, we have a runner now. And you're still going to throw the ball. Even if you're ground and pound, you're going to throw it at times. So use the draft to go out and get yourself a tight end, wide receiver. I don't know what's going to happen in free agency. I don't expect, we talked about this last night, myself and Dylan Terriman. I can't remember if we said it. I'm sure we said it on the air during the show. For a second, I thought maybe we discussed it afterwards. But we said that this team has $53 million in cap space. But in all reality, they've got to earmark some of that money for Sauce and Garrett Wilson. Like, they're due new deals. And as we're seeing today, and a lot of people have said it, get these guys signed now. Because when you wait till next year, it's 20, 30 million more. So get them signed now if you like them. So if the Jets want to get Sauce and Garrett done sometime this offseason, that's going to be a chunk of that $53 million. So it's not Darren. It's not as if Darren Muji has 53 to spend. Um, again, if he's got money earmarked for some of his top young guys that he'd like to keep on board. So the Fields thing, obviously, listen, we've said all along. I've said it. Dylan said it. It's sort of it's the not ideal but still best case scenario for this team. Who else were you going to get without giving up premium draft picks? It's a weak quarterback market, and it's a weak quarterback draft, and you don't have a quarterback. So what are you going to expect to come away with? The best guy on the market, Sam Darnold, wasn't coming back here. Not after the way things went the first time around. I don't think the Jets would have brought him back. The fans would, the second he had turned the ball over, that'd be it. The fans would turn on him. So Darnold was never coming back. He was far and away the best option out there. Who knows where Aaron Rodgers lands? You let him go. Well, I mean, I think we know it has to be Pittsburgh, right? Even if the Giants are involved, even if the Giants want to pay Aaron Rodgers a bunch of money, Aaron Rodgers knows he's got a year left. Let's pretend he's going to play 2 more. He's going to go to the Giants for a rebuild? And the Steelers are, they're a playoff team with or without him. So he makes him better. Does he bring him to that next level? We'll have to wait and see. Rich, how we doing, buddy? Rich is in the chat, as is Matthias. Matthias says he's good with the signing. He's fine with it. Same here. Listen, what else are they going to do? Even if you don't like Justin Fields, what was the alternative? Give up a bunch of draft picks for Kyler Murray or something? No, the options were limited. They made the best of a bad situation. Now, listen, if you want to argue that they could have talked to Rodgers about a pay cut and see if he would have stayed, they could have, but they didn't. So, I mean, you can let it bother you if you want, but I don't see the benefit to that. He's gone. So, I'll tell you what, though. The Steelers play the Jets at home next year. And if Rodgers lands in Pittsburgh, I'm thinking week 1, Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football, something like that. Week 1 primetime game, Jets Steelers. Rodgers returns to MetLife, and that'll be some good television. Some good television. So Rich says Fields played with both Ruckert and Wilson. Looking forward to seeing what they can do. And do we draft the tight end? Draft the tight end for Penn State at 7. Of course, Warren, who basically, I've talked about this before. We know Rick Spielman's in the war room, and we know that he said on his podcast previously that he views Warren as a top 10 pick. I get that, and that would still make sense, right? Because that would give you you're not taking a tackle, but you're taking a tight end who's a really, really good blocker. So you are still upgrading your run game by adding Warren and your pass game. So that was in fact what Daniel Jeremiah a few weeks ago when he mocked Warren to the Jets at 7. He said he helps the run game and the pass game. Well, now you really want someone who's going to help the run game. And again, tight end gives you that sort of safety valve. And Rich mentions Ruckert. That was one of my first thoughts too. I said the other day on the show, because of how little Jeremy Ruckert has done as a pro, like you can't expect anything out of him. But I also feel like anybody who played for this team over the last, 20, 30 years, they just don't develop offensive players. They don't do it. Every once in a great while, you get a guy. But that's about it. So maybe with a better coaching staff, with a presumably better offensive coaching staff and a quarterback to play with him in college, maybe we see Jeremy Ruckert. And look, I'm not saying we see Jeremy Ruckert go off for 800-plus yards. But I'd be all right with him as tight end, too, if he's getting you 400 yards and a couple scores, which he hasn't even come close to as a pro. He may not make it to training camp, let's be honest. I think Fields might help that happen, but I don't think there's any guarantee that he'll be on the roster. I hope he is. I hope like hell he is. But, you can't keep guys around because they're local and they like the team. That's icing on the cake. But I would hope you'd at least give the kid a look. So we'll see what they decide to do there. John says, that's why I don't use a card. I'm not sure what John means by that. I think John might have been talking to somebody else. Morgan Moses to the Patriots. There's an opening at right tackle at 7. I draft the LSU right tackle Campbell. I don't listen. There's a lot of talk now that Campbell is going to be a guard because he came in not just arm length but wingspan because that takes in a that's how wide is your chest, right? You can have shorter arms if you got a super broad chest and your wingspan is adequate to play the position. But universally, I shouldn't say universally, but a lot of people feel like Membu may have jumped Campbell because of the combine situation because Membu balled out and was an absolute monster and Campbell, the wingspan was just not there for what you're looking for in a tackle. So some fairly prominent voices, basically, they're guessing. They could be wrong, but they're saying that guys Campbell size do not end up playing tackle. Those are your guards. So we'll see what happens there. But like I said, I love Membu. Started a thread on him on Jet Nation a month or so ago, saying it was the first time I watched him and just saying this kid out of Mizzou is pretty good. Like I think top of second round. And then I watched a little more, and I was like, you know what? He's going in the first. And now after that combine, top 10 talk is all over the place. So I was thinking, 15-ish. Maybe if you trade back to 12 and you take him, that's not happening. He might go before 7. Look, well, I was going to say the Pats, but they did just sign Morgan Moses. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. It's a lot of speculation, a lot of things to discuss, different possibilities, what could, what might, what will happen. I'm just taking a really quick look. Another signing. Let's see. Give me just 1 second. This is just coming in. Cornerback Brandon Stephens, formerly of the Ravens, signs a 3-year, $36 million deal with the Jets. Wow, 36. So that ain't backup money. That's not, we're expecting you to that doesn't sound like they're taking a corner in the first round and having this guy back him up because that's a lot of cash. So Brandon Stephens, again, former Ravens cornerback. He started 48 games over the past 4 years, appeared in 65 games. Let's see, in terms of coverage, 2 picks in 65 games. Not a guy you want to pair with Sauce if you want to get some interceptions. But I expect the scheme to change this year, and we'll see what happens there. 21 passes defended over the past 2 years. With the he had no interceptions his first 2 years in the league. Had 2 in 2023, and then he had none last year. A UCLA SMU grad who was drafted in the 3rd round of the 21 draft by the Ravens. So Brandon Stephens, but listen, you had to get somebody. DJ Reed left, and now you're getting a veteran guy, 4 years under his belt. Again, not somebody who picks the ball off a whole lot, but my thought, I hoped that they saw enough in JBC and Stiggers and maybe bring back Eccles and let those guys compete. You've got a highly respected defensive mind as your head coach now who was a corner. So I thought maybe Aaron Glenn will see something in one of these guys that they feel they can develop. And that way you get a sort of a cheaper option, a cheaper starter. That obviously does not happen. So there's your second move of the day for the Jets. And I thought, you know what? If I hop on and go live to talk about Tyrod, I better check because they will make a move. If I don't take a look, and we won't cover it. So Brandon Stephens, again, the corner from Baltimore, is a Jet, 6'1", 215. And let's see if we can find his just scrolling, found a page on him, a PFR page. PFR is fantastic. Sometimes they have combine results. I don't see his. Just out of curiosity, was going to take a look at those. So he's the guy we'll be watching film on in the coming days and weeks and talking about his game and what we think of him. But either way, veteran edition fills another need. I think, as I said, we'll have tons of draft talk in the coming weeks, and but I think Membu is a distinct possibility at this point with the what I think will be a very, very run-heavy offense. So Kyle in the chat says, yeah, just signed Brandon Sneed. I just talked about that for a minute, Kyle. Thanks for the heads up. I was actually going to ask the chat, please update me if anybody signs while I'm speaking. But I just happened to glance over at Twitter and saw the Brandon Stevens signing. And as Rich says, by doing that, because that was my thing is, should you rule out a corner with the 7th pick if you still needed one? But now you don't. And that's what you do, right? You use free agency to fill your roster to give yourself maximum flexibility come draft time. And that's what the Jets are doing. Now they're not as desperate for a quarterback. Now they're not really 3-year deal for Stevens. CB2 isn't a pressing need now. Funny enough, though, he didn't get, he got less than DJ Reed, but not a whole lot less. I think it may have just been time for DJ Reed to go. And I can't blame him. He'd done enough losing. But it brings me to the real quick before we wrap up. I just want to come and talk about the Justin Fields thing. But oh no, I lost my train of thought. No, never mind. Interrupted myself. You get old. That's what happens. You get old. You have a thought. You interrupt your own thought, and then you're in no man's land. I'm sure it was super important. But and then it comes back to you. Garrett Wilson, Myles Garrett. I've talked this offseason about how I wouldn't be surprised if Garrett Wilson does actually want a trade because of the fact that this team is so bad and his body language and his demeanor and how miserable he is. And you see Myles Garrett, he's been going through it a lot longer. And there was enough money to keep him happy. Now, I'm not saying you make Garrett Wilson the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, which is what I believe the Browns just did with Myles Garrett. But if you can, you'll have to overpay. They'll be what the market is, and then maybe throw a little bit more on top of that. And you keep him in house because again, we're seeing what these guys go for once they hit free agency. You don't want to get in a bidding war. You don't want Sauce and Garrett to hit free agency. If your intention is to retain them, you let them hit free agency, and you're going to be in big trouble. You're going to be in a ridiculous bidding war. That's where the spending gets just absolutely bonkers. So just a little bit of food for thought, made me a little more optimistic about the Garrett Wilson thing. Is you look at Myles Garrett, you hear the statement and you think, wow, he must be just, he's just so competitive. He really wants to win. And enough money will drown out that desire to win and just, pay a guy through the nose and be like, all right, well, a few more first round picks and then I'll be on my way to Tahiti or whatever it is with my $40 million a year. So maybe look, if Garrett Wilson's market value is 27, 28 million a year, then maybe the Jets give him 35. Whatever they got to do to keep him in house, keep him happy with the team because they're, we'll see. Maybe the light comes on for Fields and he's a great player and the Jets are contending in a year or two. But I think the more likely option is that he'll do some things well. He won't do other things well. And the search will continue. The playoff drought will continue. But will Garrett Wilson continue living through it? And it looks like, I'm a little more optimistic with that. I think maybe you can pay a guy enough to just say, you know what, we're losing, but I got enough money that I'm good with it. So that'll wrap this one up. Any other big moves happen, we'll hop on, discuss those. I'm going to look a little more into Stevens now, who, as we said, the Jets just signed 3-year deal. So that'll wrap this one up. Maybe see you later. Definitely see you in the next few days as more names come across and more names are added. But the Jets have themselves a quarterback in Justin Fields, and they got themselves a corner in Brandon Stevens. Have a good one, Jets fans.